And it's almost like they're signing my death warrant every time they deny me because they do not give me the opportunity to fight for myself.
A desperate young mom here pleading for help after insurance denied the cancer drugs that could save her life. Now, this is the most moving case we have had since starting the Show Me Your Bill project here on News 4 San Antonio. And troubleshooter Jay Avila tonight has, well, he saved thousands of dollars for viewers on medical bills, but this time he is helping to fight for something of much greater value.
We get so many requests for help, but when I received Holly Richards' call, I knew it was something we had to act on right away. She feared her rare form of cancer would take her before she could get approved for potentially life-saving medications.
It was just shocking that...
It was just March of last year that Holly Richards was diagnosed with a fast-moving form of neuroendocrine carcinoma. She's only 41 years old and has a 6-year-old daughter. Despite chemotherapy, tumors rapidly spread through Holly's body. As a last resort, she tried a drug called Keytruda, which, as you can see from the image on the left, had dramatic results.
It was my miracle drug. It took away almost 95% of my tumors in a month and a half.
But you can't stay on the drug for long, and without it, the tumors grew again. Doctors recommended going back on Keytruda in combination with a second medication called Yervoy. The drugs are extremely expensive, $34,000 each per dose, and she would need several treatments. This time, Holly's insurance company, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, wouldn't cover it because it considered using the drugs together as experimental. Holly appealed the decision twice and was denied. When she called News 4 last month, she was desperate.
I fight for my 6-year-old daughter, and I fight for my husband and my family. And it's almost like they're signing my death warrant every time they deny me because they do not give me the opportunity to fight for myself.
As soon as I got Holly's call, I fired off an email to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, and I contacted the makers of both drugs. Holly had applied to get them for free, but hadn't received a response. Within hours of receiving my email, Bristol Myers Squibb, which makes Yervoy, agreed to donate the drug. And 2 days after we contacted Holly's insurance company, we received a response from Holly's employer, UTSA, which said it was overruling its insurance company. After Ms. Richards requested an appeal of Blue Cross Blue Shield's denial of coverage, the UT System's Office of Employee Benefits expedited the review process and late Thursday approved full coverage of Ms. Richards' treatment. We are grateful that Ms. Richards can continue to receive this important treatment without having to worry how the cost of it will impact her family. The following week, after Holly had received her first infusion of cancer drugs, we went back to see her.
I think that what you're doing for people that are struggling really, really means a lot. So I think keep up the good work because it's really working.
Holly is undergoing a series of infusions with some very tough side effects. The cost of her treatment will surpass $300,000. She was about to borrow money for it when she called us, but that's one hurdle she doesn't have to worry about now. I'm News 4 troubleshooter Jay Avila.
Well, it is the most outrageous surprise medical bill we have seen so far since we started focusing on this problem. It was close to $100,000 in charges for that man who was severely burned in an accident. Our troubleshooter Jay Avila first brought you his story 2 weeks ago, and tonight delivers some great news.
Whoa. Chris Gass is back at work and back playing with his kids. But last October, Chris suffered third-degree burns over 20% of his body in a crash. He might have died if he hadn't been pulled from his truck by a couple of passing Marines. After a long, painful recovery at Brooke Army Medical Center, another big shock. Chris says his insurance company, United Healthcare, wouldn't pay the $98,000 in medical bills.
I said, that is just not fair. It's not right. When you have that big bill hanging over your head, I mean, you kind of feel defeated from the beginning of the day.
Chris says United Healthcare told him Brooke Army Medical Center was an out-of-network facility. Our story caught the attention of Congressman Lloyd Doggett, who is pushing surprise medical bill legislation in Washington.
Well, I think what happened to Chris is just another outrageous example of why we need a law to prevent this kind of surprise billing.
It says inpatient services.
After Chris showed me his bill, I contacted United Healthcare and Brooke Army Medical Center. It took several weeks, but the insurance company says it will cover the charges.
Instead of $98,000 for the hospital and the ambulance, Chris will only have to pay about $2,800 for his deductible and his co-insurance. And Chris's ongoing treatment at BAMC will be covered as being in-network. How are you feeling now?
Oh man, I'm so grateful for the troubleshooters that worked hard behind the scenes and got things rolling.
The latest statement from United Healthcare reads, "We will support him as he continues to recover from his late 2018 accident, including reviewing coverage of his ongoing care needs based on his benefits." Brooke Army Medical Center adds, "We continue to reach out to Mr. Guess to ensure we are fully addressing his questions and concerns." Legislation now in Congress would require hospitals and insurance companies to do what they eventually did in this case, negotiate with each other rather than put the burden on the patient.
It just shouldn't take the excellent work of Show Me Your Bill to solve each of these problems.
If Congress passes a ban on surprise billing, it would protect patients who aren't covered by the ban passed by the Texas legislature this past session. Show me your bill by going to news4sa.com/bills. I'm News 4 troubleshooter Jay Avila.
Only on 4. Texas passed laws this year to protect patients from surprise medical bills. But some hospitals can still hit you with huge charges, take money from your paycheck, even confiscate your tax refund. News 4 troubleshooter Jay Avila shows us how it's devastating some local families.
Government-owned hospitals like Brooke Army Medical Center can save your life in an emergency, but they're not part of any insurance network and will not negotiate charges with them. If your insurance doesn't pay the bill in full, the government goes after you.
You don't have to go fast.
Back in 2015, Frank Hooker suffered a fall that fractured his skull and caused bleeding in his brain. He was flown to Brooke Army Medical Center for several days of treatment.
To this day, I still don't know why the bill wasn't paid, because he had really good insurance.
Frank worked for the city of Devine for decades, but now suffers from Alzheimer's, and his wife recently passed away. His daughter Jana says she had no idea there was an unpaid hospital bill for $60,000 until January of this year.
I got a letter from the Department of Treasury saying if it wasn't paid in full, they were going to take it out of his Social Security.
And that's what they did. The Treasury Department also took Frank's tax refund and applied it toward the bill, money his daughter needed to pay for a nursing home.
But they wouldn't take him because his check is so small now, it wasn't enough to cover the expenses. He needs new clothes, new shoes, things like that, but right now it's just, I can't do it.
Jana says she spent hours on the phone with Brooke Army Medical Center and her father's insurance company, Humana, but couldn't even get a copy of the bill. So I contacted Humana and BAMC on Frank's behalf. Brooke Army Medical Center says after hearing from us, they immediately called Jana. We provided a copy of the bill to her for her records. As a courtesy to Ms. Gentry, we rebilled her father's insurance carrier. Humana also told me it would look into Frank's bill, adding, "We worked diligently with our members to research and resolve their personal situations." A few days went by, and then this morning, Humana called Frank's daughter Jana with fantastic news. It is covering the hospital bill. Instead of almost $60,000, the family's only remaining copay is $375. A huge relief. And now they can focus on caring for Frank in his final years.
Made it.
Made it.
We've heard from numerous other families who are struggling to pay off large bills because their insurance companies will not cover charges from BAMC. We've asked to interview someone with Brooke Army Medical Center or the Treasury Department about their collection methods, and we hope to bring that to you soon. I'm News 4 troubleshooter Jay Avila.
When you go to the emergency room here in San Antonio, there is a good chance that the doctor who treats you there does not really work for that hospital. News 4 San Antonio troubleshooter Jay Avila has uncovered that some local doctors actually work for one of the biggest investment firms in the country, and Congress is investigating whether that troublesome connection is to blame for the rise in surprise medical bills.
Members of Congress are taking a close look at private equity firms that have been buying up physician staffing companies around the country, including here in San Antonio, raising the question, are surprise medical bills the result of treating your health care as an investment?
They're not covering it.
April Ray received what seemed like a typical surprise bill. She went to Methodist Specialty and Transplant Hospital for gallbladder surgery because it was in her insurance network. So her plan covered the hospital and the surgeon. But then she received an $1,800 out-of-network bill from another doctor on the team.
I expected to get the one bill because they were in network with my insurance, and then all of a sudden I just got this huge bill and panicked.
Like many hospitals, Methodist outsources some of its physician staffing to separate companies. The bill April received was from a physician group called Kensington Row Inpatient Services. My research found that Kensington Row is one of dozens of physician staffing companies owned by a parent company called Envision Healthcare. And Envision is owned by KKR, Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, one of the biggest private equity firms in the country. Private equity firms take money from big investors and buy a company, then make changes at that company to maximize profits so it can turn around and sell the company for a higher price later. Researchers at Yale did a study and found when one of Envision Healthcare's staffing companies gets the contract at a hospital, they immediately exit insurance networks and bill as out-of-network providers, then raise their prices by 96% over what the prior physician group in that hospital charged.
Those firms have realized that surprise medical billing can generate a lot of profit, can make them a lot of money.
Envision and KKR say the Yale study is wrong and sent News 4 this statement. Caring for Americans through more than 35 million patient visits a year is at the core of what we do, including our efforts to end surprise medical bills. In February 2017, Envision Healthcare committed to being in network with as many insurers as possible. And since investing in Envision, KKR has fully supported this. Members of Congress still aren't convinced. Last fall, they sent letters to KKR and two other private equity firms asking for information on their billing practices. When I contacted Envision, they said April Ray won't have to pay her surprise bill. They said it had been incorrectly processed by the insurance company.
I am so thankful that y'all, were able to look into this bill for me. I'm just ecstatic.
Private equity firms, hospital groups, and insurance companies have all been spending big money on advertising and lobbying, hoping to influence surprise billing legislation now in Congress. I'm News 4 troubleshooter Jay Avila.